60 years, and one form or another was at the forefront of Irish politics, and his life kind of encapsulates that moving on away from home rule into full republicanism. It's grave Eamon de Valera. First thing people always notice when they come here is his huge political figure, his very unassuming headstone. The reason for that is the first name on the grave, Brian. In the year 1936, Eamon de Valera's son was horse riding through the Phoenix Park. Horse went beneath a tree and there was a branch hanging quite low. It struck him by the neck and he passed away. Eamon always wanted to go in the same grave as his son. That's why it became his family plot afterwards. So Eamon was born in the year 1882 in the Bronx in New York City. His dad was a Spanish-Cuban businessman. His mother was Irish. His father died when he was just 2 years old, so he was sent back to Ireland for his education. He went to primary school in Limerick before going on to Blackrock College here in Dublin. Eventually qualified at UCD as a maths teacher. That was very much aside from his political goals though. The Rising broke out and he became the commander at the Boland's Mills Regiment. It was like a biscuit factory in the Docklands. That church monument just over there is actually the Boland family who owned those mills. So everybody's here right beside each other in death. As commander, he was supposed to be executed. His execution didn't go ahead though for two reasons. Firstly, he was an American citizen. The Rising broke out directly in the middle of the First World War. At precisely the same time, Britain was trying to coax America into abandoning isolationism and entering the war. It wouldn't have been very clever to, on one hand, execute an American citizen, then ask for American help. The second reason he's not executed is significant too. It's that big change in public opinion that came with the rebellion. He's supposed to be the last man to be executed, and by the time his execution date approached, public opinion had kind of shifted, so much so that the authorities believed another execution would just be a bridge too far and would cause uproar. So instead he got a token sentence of 9 months, came out shortly after. He pops up again in 1919, and that year two separate things happened in Ireland. Firstly, in 1919, a group of the surviving leaders in the Rising and other political figures from around the country gathered together at the Mansion House on Dawson Street in the city centre, and they announced the first Parliament of Ireland, first Dáil Éireann. Nearly every country in the world refused to recognise that Parliament. They saw it as a random group of people just getting together and saying, right, we're the new government, don't listen to anybody else. However, two nations did recognise that government. One was Woodrow Wilson's United States, and the other was Lenin's Communist Russia. There's an interesting connection between Russia and the first government that I'll talk about later on. Eamon de Valera became president of the Executive Council, it's kind of like a prime ministerial position in that government. Also in 1919, the War of Independence broke out. It was like a part two of the 1916 Rising. No longer did the IRAs, they are now called, led by General Michael Collins, just seize key buildings, away to be surrounded and shelled. Instead, they embraced guerrilla warfare tactics. They had their whole strategy on things like ambushes, assassinations, spying. It was a very hard type of conflict to stamp out because they weren't a uniformed army and didn't stay in one place for very long. So that War of Independence raged on for 2 years until 1921. In October 1921, a natural stalemate had been reached. On one side, the IRA was running low on money and on guns, didn't have any resources to carry on, there wasn't any point. On the other side then, the British Army was just a bit frustrated. They couldn't predict or prevent these strategies, didn't know how to stamp it out. So both sides agreed they'd meet in London, work out a peace treaty to end that conflict. So both sides agreed to meet in London, and delegations were selected. Eamon de Valera said he would not go and negotiate. Instead, Arthur Griffith and Michael Collins, assisted by men like Childers, Barton, Gavin Duffy and Duggan, went to the UK to meet with the Prime Minister Lloyd George, who was actually Welsh, and to work out that treaty. All of the guys in the Irish delegation, and indeed the people back in the Dáil and Dublin, broadly wanted the exact same thing. They all broadly wanted an independent Republic of Ireland. However, when the Irish delegation reached Westminster and across the negotiating table, they found that their team was being led by people like Winston Churchill and Lord Birkenhead. They quickly realised they'd never have their full demand met and face that kind of talent in a debating team, especially Winston Churchill. So in 1921, in December, the Prime Minister Lloyd George gave his final draft of a treaty before the Irish delegation. It was kind of like what Home Rule would have been. It included things like Ireland having a home parliament, but the Crown was still head of state. Oath of loyalty was sworn by Parliament to the Crown. The key Irish ports of Lough Swilly, Bearhaven and Cove were still under the command of the Navy, and it also created Northern Ireland. That was against the ideas of the men in the Irish delegation, or indeed anybody back here in Dublin. It was given with a kind of strict caveat. Lloyd George said he feared that if the treaty was not accepted in its final draft, there would be an immediate and terrible war. Feeling it was a stepping stone towards greater things, feeling it was the best deal that could have been achieved, and knowing there was no resources to carry on, the Irish delegation accepted the treaty and brought it back to Dublin. However, when it was placed before the Dáil, it split the entire country almost exactly down the middle. The majority accepted the treaty, establishing a pro-treaty side, and Michael Collins became the figurehead of the pro-treaty movement. Eamon de Valera led a walkout of a large minority in rejection of the treaty, establishing an anti-treaty side. All of a sudden there were two sides of a civil war set up, pro-treaty, anti-treaty. Civil war was sparked in 1922. Went on for only 11 months, but in terms of bloodshed, it was by far the worst conflict the country had seen. Every village, town, city divided upon itself, even families kind of split along treaty lines. Eamon de Valera spent most of that in jail. He came out of jail in 1924, and 1926 he founded his political party, Fianna Fáil, and by the time of his death in 1975 he'd led four governments and been president once officially and once unofficially. It's quite a longevity in politics, I suppose. After his death, he was interred here, and all this became his family plot. This part of the graveyard is a good area to get an idea of the social side of things. So there's a Greek word, or archaic Greek anyway, necropolis, which means city of the dead. And in many respects, this place does act like a city or like an urban area. In this graveyard, there's all sides of all conflicts. There's pro-treaty, anti-treaty, labour leaders and industrialists. There's both sides, the American Civil War, both sides of the Spanish Civil War. The graveyard even has Frank Duff, the founder of the Catholic Legion of Mary, and Brendan Behan, the writer, right beside each other in death. So every side of every possible opinion is well represented. People who are together in life, though, are usually in the same neighbourhood of the graveyard in death. So here's Eamon de Valera. Just behind him is Sean Francis McEntee, a member of his political party, a very close ally. Two graves that way is a secretary. And you'll see various other kind of cabinet ministers and members of the party dotted around him. Later on, when we go to Michael Collins, you'll see the exact same dynamic, except with pro-treaty names. So it's interesting these kind of themes carry on into death. There's like kind of a neighbourhood system, I suppose. So we'll go around the corner up here.